Good evening, I'm Duncan Golestani. We've been told today that we stand at a critical point of the coronavirus pandemic. This morning, scientists warned of a surge in infections. This afternoon, the Mayor of London held a meeting with council leaders to put forward his solution, tougher restrictions here in the capital. Sadiq Khan's message is for more people to work from home where possible and for fewer people to use public transport. Our political correspondent Simon Harris has the details.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
On the Underground, it was the busiest Monday since March. 750,000 passengers took the tube during rush hour this morning. But just when we were told it was safe to go back to work, the Mayor and council leaders want more people to work from home and stop travelling.
I don't want to stay home. I don't want to be on benefits. I have mortgage to pay. I have my children to look after.
It's going to really make everyone feel stressed, sick.
I don't want to be locked down. I'm only in a small flat. Much rather get out, go to work or go and see friends and stuff like that.
We can cope. We've coped before. We'll probably cope again. But yeah, it's not ideal, is it?
On the face of it, Ilford High Street has bounced back from the last lockdown. The shops are open and there are plenty of customers. But Ilford is in London's worst affected borough, Redbridge, and traders fear the rising number of cases is beginning to scare shoppers.
It was fine after the lockdown, but from last 2-3 weeks, I can see it's like we can see the difference. You can tell the difference because footfall and the sale is just coming down every day, day by day.
Redbridge, along with Hounslow, now has more than 30 cases for every 100,000 people. Barking and Dagenham, next door to Redbridge, isn't far behind. But this worrying rise in infections is now apparent across much of London. The leader of Redbridge Council would like to see the police take a tougher line enforcing the rule of 6.
The police do an incredible job, but they have other priorities as well, drugs and violent crime. So whilst they got that, this is at the bottom of the food chain, and we need this pushed further up because this is far more important. People will die.
At City Hall, the Mayor hosted a virtual summit of council leaders and government officials to consider new London-wide restrictions. In the Commons, the Health Secretary gave a bleak assessment.
We know that the epidemic is currently doubling around every 7 days, and that if we continue on this trajectory, we could see 50,000 cases a day by mid-October.
Redbridge, along with the rest of London, will find out from the Prime Minister tomorrow if the lockdown rules are about to be tightened. Simon Harris, ITV News, Ilford.
Good evening. We'll all be living under new COVID restrictions by the end of the week, ones which could change the way we live in London for the next 6 months. The Prime Minister made the big announcement this afternoon. The infection rate isn't as high as it was during the height of the pandemic, but this is all about staving off an even worse situation over the autumn and winter, he says. So there are quite a few changes, but here are the big ones. From Thursday, if you're going for a drink or something to eat, you need to be out and the doors shut by 10 p.m. There'll be no more standing up and ordering drinks. You can only be served at tables. In fact, all hospitality venues will be limited to table service only. But the biggest change for our city, which could impact struggling businesses even more, everyone has been told to work from home if they can again. And if you're meant to wear a mask and don't, fines have been doubled to £200. We're going to be talking a lot about this today, but our first report tonight comes from our political correspondent Simon Harris, who's been to the Prime Minister's constituency in Uxbridge.
For London's bars and restaurants, this was a devastating, possibly killer blow. Bar Italia is a family-owned business in Uxbridge, where the local MP is also the Prime Minister. It's open until 2 in the morning, and late-night drinkers are a crucial source of income. But now there's to be a 10 o'clock curfew.
Well, it probably spells the end, if I'm honest, because we may have just got through the first storm, but the reality is now, if you take away wet sale trade, which is essentially what will be affected the most, after 10 p.m, there's just not the revenue to survive. And the reality is, this will take us out.
In another part of Uxbridge, the Three Steps pub has just been granted a karaoke licence, and the landlord was beginning to see light at the end of the tunnel.
We've just started getting used to these set of rules with social distancing, trading at 30% capacity, and it's going to have a huge impact on our businesses closing early. I think this is going to be the closure of most pubs. They ain't going to be able to trade.
Even before today's rules were announced, Uxbridge High Street had the quiet feel of a Sunday morning. It's almost 5 months since Boris Johnson told us we were past the peak of the coronavirus outbreak. Restarting the economy then became the government's focus. But today, the Prime Minister put the brakes on.
First, we are once again asking office workers who can work from home to do so. Second, from Thursday, all pubs, bars and restaurants must operate a table service only, Mr. Speaker, except for takeaways. Together with all hospitality venues, they must close at 10 p.m.
And these might not be short-term measures.
We should assume that the restrictions I have announced will remain in place for perhaps 6 months.
The Prime Minister was challenged by a fellow Tory MP from her office.
With this 6-month time frame he's announced, what does he say to grandparents who want to live their lives before it's too late and cannot see their families, to worried parents and families who cannot access a test at the moment, to workers and business owners facing financial ruin?
Mr Johnson said MPs will get to debate the new restrictions next week. Gary Binding is Uxbridge born and bred. By 10 o'clock this morning, he'd been waiting on the rank outside the tube station for more than 3 hours.
Our work now is just shoppers going home with their shopping, so we're only getting 3 or 4 jobs a day. I'm about 80% down on my average daily taking, so yeah, it's not good.
Bar Italia is one of 12 pubs and restaurants owned by the family. If they all close, 300 jobs will be lost. Simon Harris, ITV News, Uxbridge.
This week, Sir Ed Davey will address his party at its annual conference for the first time as the new leader of the Liberal Democrats. It begins tomorrow, virtually of course, and ahead of it starting, the MP for Kingston and Surbiton has been speaking to our political correspondent Simon Harris about the future of the capital and whether the delayed mayoral elections should go ahead next year.
I think it should go ahead because we do need to try to get democracy going again. The postponing elections the whole time is not good for democracy. But we need to make sure we can do it in a safe way.
How do you have a rally if you've got a rule of 6?
Well, there are other ways that people can communicate with the voters. And in my experience of election rallies, they're not that well attended. And if America can have presidential elections, I think London can have a mayoral election.
Your campaign's in a bit of trouble. Your candidate, Siobhan Benita, threw the towel in the summer. One of her possible replacements, Geeta Sidhu-Rob, has been suspended by the party for anti-Semitic remarks she made in a campaign 23 years ago. How did it all go wrong?
Well, it's not gone wrong because Louisa Porritt is going to be our candidate. We've got to go through the process of formally endorsing her. But she's an amazing campaigner. She's done brilliant things in Camden. She was an MEP, very pro-European in a pro-European city. I think when people see her, they're going to be very, very impressed.
How did Geeta Sidhu-Rob make it into the running with that past?
Well, the key thing is, as soon as we found out about her past, within hours, we suspended her. And I'm proud that the party operated so quickly. I wish other parties operated quickly in the way we did.
Have you downloaded the new contact tracing app?
Well, I read about it today. I've been waiting months for it. I don't know about you. I'm delighted that it's arrived, late though it is, but I'm actually going to download it later today.
You're a London MP. How worried are you that central London will never go back to normal?
Well, I am worried in the sense that we do need to make sure the centre is lively. But there is an opportunity here as well, because there are lots of people in constituencies like mine who quite like working at home at least part of the week. And if that can relieve some pressure, we may well be able to deal with London's housing crisis. So if there is a reduced demand for office space in central London, maybe we should repurpose those buildings into homes that are sustainable and affordable for young people who are struggling to get on the housing market.